Hey, what's up, guys? It's Reed Young, aka Shooter here. I'm going to be reviewing this crazy 6 max hand where we have jacks and some deep stacks. So here we go. We raised to 3x, which I think is fine, and looks like we're getting some multi-way action. We flop an overpair, and I think the continuation bet is completely standard. We would definitely want to be going for three streets of value with such a strong hand and balance our semi bluffs. If we decided to continuation bet a hand like Ace King, or if we have some sort of hand like Jack 8 suited, or, probably more likely 9 8 suited. So we bet the button calls, and, I think it's a pretty safe assumption that his range is some tens, a few sevens that he decided to not raise on the flop, the occasional slow played full house, and the bulk of it would be a straight draw, I think, just combination wise. And something else to think about is that deep and in position against us, he should have a much wider range than normal. The shorter stacks in the blinds might deter him from calling as wide as he might normally, but with just so much more implied odds, he should be playing more hands. So that I think should factor into our continuation betting frequency. Also, I think the sizing could be a little bit larger. I don't think it's a big deal there. So we get to the turn, it's a blank, and we decide to bet again. Again, we're betting on the smaller side. I think there's more value to be had here, and then we can just adjust our bluffing ranges accordingly. So we bet 85 into 123. It's really not going to price him out of any draws, so you definitely want to keep that in mind as we get to the river. With weaker hands, you might want to work in some check calls on the river, but I think with jacks, unless the river is just very scary, and I really don't even know what that means. But unless you run across like a river ace or something like that, I think you're just better off going for three streets of value. Even on a river ace, you would want to continue bluffing with the times that you have like ace king or something like that, so you can get value. So I really wouldn't hate still going for three streets, but maybe I would check call a bit more often. So we bet 85 into 123 on the turn. We get called again. Now I think his range is extremely similar to what it is on the flop, but maybe we just fold out some of the gut shot type draws. So stuff like Jack 9 suited if he had it, even though we block a couple jacks, but weaker draws, I think he just folds. So now his range is a bit more made hand rich, but I still think it's pretty wide here. So we get to the river jack, obviously a fantastic card for us. I think the best play here is to either check raise, so we can get an extra bet from a 7 and allow him to represent straights. If he wants to turn a hand into a bluff, somehow he double floated us maybe, or he just thinks the 10's no longer good, so he tries to bet with it. Like if he has 10-9 suited, and he thinks if we check this river, because it's a pretty decent river for our range as well, that 10-9 won't win, and he wants to be bluffing some of the time. So I think all things combined, we get one bet in on the river very often if we check. Where I don't think he would necessarily call a bet with a 10 anyway. At least a lot of players won't, just because it's pretty close to the bottom of his range at this point. So I think he's either checking back a 10 when we check to him, or potentially turning it into a bluff. But if we bet, he's probably folding. In most cases, he would try to value bet a jack, and he would almost certainly be value betting a 7 or better. So check raising here is probably going to dominate just betting. But the good thing about a bet is that we could be called by a 10. I don't think it's likely, and we can bet 3 bet because we are deep enough stacked that I think 3 bets can go in on the river. but it's very close. So if we check and you bet 180, I think getting a check raise end for most of our remaining stacks wouldn't be an issue. And just in my experience, people do bet smaller in that situation, when I think they should just be betting larger and trying to cater their range more toward a larger bet, because they can get a lot more value by betting bigger. So that's kind of one of the themes of this situation, I guess, is larger bets tend to get more value, and you can just balance accordingly. So we actually do the betting, and we do make it a large amount, which I suppose is targeting his range of hands like a 7 or a straight. And something to consider, though, is if we bet so large that we appear to be polarizing our range to the point that it may be difficult for a 7 to raise for value against our range. So if our opponent just thinks our range is 10s, jacks, 2s, and air, he's not going to be raising a 7 here. But if we had bet something like 180, maybe he does raise a 7 for value and just tries to get us to call with a hand like queens or kings here. And so my friend's question here is, should I be going all in over the top of this raise? And I think he absolutely should be, because occasionally we're going to be raised by a 7 here. I think it's a great play anyway for a 7, because most of our range is probably over pairs. Just combinatorically, queens through aces definitely outweigh 10s, jacks, and 2s here. So I think our opponent can get in a raise. It's just a very strong hand for his range as well. Additionally, I think straights do raise here, so we want to get value from the worst hands that raise. Also, if our opponent could turn a 10 into a bluff like this, we definitely want to be able to protect our river betting range by raising over the top of this, potentially rebluffing. So I think with how strong jacks are, I mean, it's the second nuts on this board, you definitely need to be re-raising it. And it's not like some huge thing if he calls with quads just because that's the one better hand. But I think he would be calling us with 2s and with pocket 10s pretty often. You just don't see people folding full houses in spots like this, especially where it's potentially conceivable that we're either bluffing or that we're value raising worse. So if he has 10s, maybe he'll think that we have 2s, or sometimes it's straight. But I don't think it's like an auto raise fold for him. And I also think that the main issue here is not that he always only raises so strong here that we can't shove on the river, which we don't know about this opponent at all, but that we do need to combat his raising frequency on the river. And since we're unsure of what that is, I think a good default plan is to value shove a hand as strong as jacks here. So we do shove, he calls, and we lose to quads, which sucks. But I think there isn't anything that we could do here in this situation. It's just a cooler, and the river, certainly didn't help. But I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know what you think about the shove on the river, and if you think it's the correct play, and I'll see you guys in the comments section.